Hello, everyone. Hello, this is Kat at Cosmic Metamorphosis. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am sorry it has been several weeks. I've been busy with work and life, and I have a cold, if you can't tell. Um, anyways, today we're going to be doing Alex Collier's 28th of July from 2023, his number 188 that I've transcribed for you. I just wanted to say I have felt like I don't know how many of my family, my beautiful family out there, if you have been feeling a real pressure. I've been feeling kind of like this compression, is all I can describe it as, kind of like we're going through the eye of a needle. Um, it just feels like there are days where it's very chaotic. Like things are very chaotic, and there's one thing after another that happens, and you're like, what the hell? Is this just gonna be a crazy day, or like what the hell is happening? Um, so I just feel like everything's being compressed, and we're going through the eye of this needle before we come out of this other side. So that's kind of what I've been feeling, or maybe like a pulling on your soul. I can't describe it. That's all I can say is like it's like a pulling or a compression. So I don't know if any of you have been feeling that way. Um, yeah, this cold. I got it from Black Friday from working at work, and I made the mistake of gathering all of our carts in our store and putting them where they needed to be because people leave the carts at this, at the start at the entrance of the store. So I forgot to sanitize my hands, and I don't sanitize all the time because yes, there are good germs and bad germs, but every single time I use a cart, if I don't sanitize after, I get sick. Sure enough, I got sick. I actually had a real scare on over the weekend, this past weekend. Today is the 30th, of the last day of November. We're into December. And here in the panhandle of Idaho, it is freezing. And it has been below freezing for the past several days. It usually never gets, in the 14 years we've lived here, it's never been this cold in November. Usually we don't get this cold till January or February. So it's been insanely cold. Um, we had the gas go out for 4 days. Um, yeah, a couple of weeks ago it was right around my birthday on the 10th. So we had no gas to heat water or to cook with. So yeah, we had to take spit baths. Apparently they broke a gas pipe on the Palouse up here, and yeah, you can't tell me when they're so adamant about people digging and please call before, because there's pipes, and yet they were the ones that actually burst the pipe. I don't know. There's something to that story. I think they installed new gas meters over the summer, and I feel like it had something to do with that because they, when this happened, they had to call in people from PG&E, which I think they're out of California, or they were saying there were people out of California, electrical companies in Oregon who actually came in to help in the valley because all the gas was out in the whole valley. Um, so they were coming and helping people turn the gas back on. I just found that rather peculiar that they didn't know where this pipe was, and yet, oh, let's turn on everybody's new gas meter. I don't know. Maybe it's just the conspiracy theory in me, but that's anyway. So I'm with my cold. I am drinking my Kausa root or Osha root, is what Native Americans take. I added some elderberry and lemon and honey. So this is supposed to help your cold when you're getting one. So I've been drinking this all week pretty much. So it's just kind of really all my sinuses. But it did scare me over the weekend because I had a headache on the side of my head for 2 days, and nothing I took like helped it. And I think it's just a viral thing. Um, but I was kind of uncertain. I didn't know if it was a stroke or not. But I did all the tests. Like my limbs were fine. Nothing was drooping, so I could talk. Like I was just a little incoherent for a little bit, but I think that was a. They really think it was a viral thing. So anyway, I'm taking care of myself. Anyway, but I wanted to show you a couple of things that I found. I forgot to show you the last time when I went to the rock show. I forgot to show you my little sphinx. I got a little kitty sphinx. Isn't he cute? Oh my gosh. He's so cute. I forget. They called it like a glow stone, but he's black. And if you glow a UV light or a regular flashlight, even, he's got little blue spots that like glow. And then I went to our antique store here in town, and like the mouse I have up here on the shelf that has like the tea light, he holds a tea light. I found a ginkgo leaf one. Isn't that cool? So you can put a little votive light in there. It's a ginkgo leaf. I was like, that's so cool. I want that. So I found that, and I found an angel fire quartz obelisk. Isn't that cool? It's really pretty. They still say crystals. If you watch Mud Fossil University, these crystals, this is like blood in there. And I think all of our crystals come from like giant beings. Our bodies crystallize into things. It's amazing if you watch his channel. He explains it all. And then I found a mushroom. This moss agate mushroom. Isn't that cool? It's just so pretty. I had to have it. That's my theme this year on my Christmas tree is woodland animals and mushrooms. And I'm stringing some cinnamon sticks and dehydrated orange slices and cranberries. So it's going to be really cool. And I haven't added a little ornament with a Bigfoot. And then I found this copper kettle. Isn't this cool? I found a copper kettle. It's so pretty. I'm not sure I'll boil water because it's actually, there's a little bit of rust up here in the spout, but it's parts of it are starting to turn green. But I love copper things. So I found that for $20 and I was like, oh my God, I gotta have it. So anyway, enough about me. Let's get on. So Alex Collier's 28th July of 2023, number 188. Says, hello, everyone. Thank you for supporting our little webinar. I want to do a couple of things first. He says, Christine Elliott sent me a book. It's a wonderful book, and it's called You Are a Gift from the Stars. And it's about star seeds. And although I think it's more geared towards children, it's really, really good. He says you can get this on Amazon.com for your children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren. He says it's really, really sweet. Okay. He says, I enjoyed it. The artwork is top shelf and it's just very, very nice. Christina Elliott, you are a gift from the stars. And I understand she has other books, but I was given this one and I wanted to share that. It says, also last week we had a question regarding Sarasota Beach in Florida, and the question centered around the sands at Sarasota Beach. And if I came off a bit flippant, he says, then I apologize. I do. That was never my intention. However, there's information I have today that I didn't have last week, and that is approximately 4.5 to 4, a little bit further down under Sarasota Beach, and there's a very large geode canyon full of crystal. And it is that frequency rising through the bedrock to the beach. You also have a ley line crossing on that beach. And that ley line literally crosses this frequency that's coming up from this geode canyon on the shelf of the Atlantic Ocean. And the information that I was given was if you had dowsing rods or technological equipment, you could measure the hertz, and it is approximately a 93 to 97 yards is where the frequency is the highest. When there's solar eruption, then you can expand to 150 to 250 yards. But normally it's under 100 yards. That's where this frequency is. This is what the healing energy is itself. He says, so I want to take it back to you guys and share that with you, or especially the person that asked the question, because it's a big deal, okay? It's a big deal, and you know a lot of people are broken and they need whatever healing they can get, you know. We're going through a lot of stuff, but I want to catch up with some new things. Now, if you're aware, the sous chef at the Obama Mansion just died. Of course, see, this is from back in July, at the end of July, so I apologize. I'm just getting to it at the end of November. But he says, according to the initial recovery of the body had been bruised and it looked like the face had been beaten. Now, this was a paddleboarder. The initial reports from the press was that he was in the ocean. That turned out to be bullshit. He wasn't in the ocean. He was on a property in an 8-foot pond where he drowned, but he wasn't alone. And it's interesting how that whole story has disappeared. But what's also interesting is that the man of the house and the other man of the house, no one seems to know where they are. And then they just showed up to Rosalind Carter's funeral. So they're still around. Wow. He says, okay. And then this story has been released. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is telling you where things are about to go. Okay. Now, this particular information came from the law firm of Lisa Wayne. She is the daughter of John Wayne, the movie star John Wayne. There was a gentleman by the name of Jean Paul Ludwig. He was born in 1890. He immigrated to the United States in 1924 and was assigned a Social Security number of 042684425. Mr. Ludwig lived most of his life in Connecticut, which is why his Social Security number on the East Coast starts with a 0 or a 042. Those are the first 3 numbers. It says Mr. Ludwig spent the final months of his life in Hawaii, where he died. Conveniently, Madeline Payne Dunham, who worked part-time at the probate office in Honolulu, Hawaii courthouse, had access to Social Security numbers of deceased individuals. Now remember the grandmother's name, Madeline Dunham. I didn't bring a Kleenex with me. I'm so sorry. My nose is running. The Social Security Administration was never informed of Ludwig's death. So because there was no Social Security benefits or anything, it just sort of fell through the cracks. Well, what's really, really interesting is that Madeline Dunham knew that her grandson was not a U.S. citizen because he had been born in Kenya and then had become a citizen of Indonesia on the adoption by his father, Lolo Sotoro. She had the Social Security number and she passed it on to her grandson. Now her grandson just happens to be Barry Sotoro, aka Barack Obama. Barack Obama's Social Security number is 0426-84425. Now the Social Security admin only issues, number one, Social Security per person. It never reuses the numbers. So this is out there. He says this is out there. And if you can remember, those of us who have been doing the research and been following or you have relationships, or you have military people in your family, members of the military have said they've had to come up with a whole new version of treason because of Barack Obama. So that's how we start our webinar today. And he laughs, he says, okay. He says, yeah, it's getting interesting. Now the weather is, he says, we're in the middle of a weather war. There's a great deal of weather manipulation going on. It turns out HAARP in Alaska, the white hats have control of. However, there are 8 HAARPs around the world, and apparently we don't have control of all of those yet. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I mean, because it's hot in places that's never this hot. He says, last Thursday we had a tornado touch down on Pikes Peak, which is a 14,000-foot mountain in Colorado Springs. It came down somewhere between 9,000 to 10,000 feet and took out 2 miles of trees. These kinds of things just don't happen here in the Rockies, okay? They're so rare. You can count the indiscrepancies on one hand. Absolutely. That never happens. You just don't get tornadoes in that area of the country. Okay, so he says, so it's really interesting what's going on, and it could be that there's an entrance into Cheyenne, a back entrance in that area that somebody was trying to find. He says, I mean, you have to think this way because we're still going a little back and forth. He says, now I want to talk about the EBS. All indications are it's imminent. And we've been as close to it as it's ever going to be. We've had military moving into position. We have equipment moving all over the place. We have hundreds of aircraft today in the sky. The Homeland Security shows the U.S. at DEFCON 3, which now it's at 2. I think it's still at 2. I had a conversation with Sarge. I love Sarge at Icons. And Sarge told me that his people told him that the military's at DEFCON 2. See, that means they are ready for war, ready for battle. They're just waiting on the O. They're sitting on the G, waiting on the O. And the go sign, he says, to move. So they're already ready. Everything's in place. They're ready to move. He says, now, I've been told those who live in a city or in the suburbs of a large city, if you can and if you're able to, try to put together 3 weeks of food storage, at least 3 weeks, and the reasons are this. You have the military moving into these cities. Now every city in this country has an underlying criminal. I put a question mark because I couldn't understand what he's saying. It has an underlying something element, an underground economy within it. And we are talking about cartels. We're talking about gangs. We're talking about chop shops, stolen cars, trafficking, drug distributing. All of those things are in those areas. Well, now you have the military on this turf. It says, and if you've been following any of the information as it's going on, they're going to know that once the deep staters are taken out of the human traffickers, and the gangs and everyone else are going to be next. So, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to respond to protect their turf and their enterprises. Now, this is at Los Angeles Police Department or NYPD or Chicago PD. This is the U.S., or he says this isn't LAPD or New York or Chicago. He says this is the U.S. Army, U.S. Marines. These guys are not trained to be cops, okay? They are soldiers. And what they don't want is civilians in these areas when things happen. That's why they want you at home. That's why they want you close to home, because if you're in the way, you're in the way. And it's 3 weeks, it could be less, it's hard to know. Okay, we are in uncharted territory right now. The last time the US was in martial law was during the Civil War, and there was only 33, 34 states. So it's very, very different now. So if you have the ability to do it, do it. He says, no, I don't have a date, but there's an awful lot of chatter that everything is ready. There's chatter that the deep state has made its last chess move. Now we know we're never getting this intel in real time, so they say it's happening this week, but it could have happened months ago. We don't know. Okay. And what did we hear last night? Since today is November 30th, Kissinger just died. Thank God. That man was an evil, evil man. So thank God he's dead. I'm sure he's been dead for a while. If the military's at DEFCON 2, they're ready to move. So in order for you to be prepared to deal with the potential of what's coming, I'm sharing this information with you. You can do whatever you want. But if the inner cities and things get kind of dicey, said you may have a hard time getting to the grocery store because trucks of food and fuel says they will not be coming in and out. Yeah. He says not if it's a hot zone. So none of that's going to happen. You're going to have to stay indoors. So if you don't have what you need, you don't have it. So I'm going to pass that information to you so you can do it as you please. He says, hopefully it won't be like that. The other is the disclosure that will accompany the EBS is going to be very, very difficult for a lot of people to hear and see. It's about treason, it's about corruption, it's about assassination, it's about human trafficking, it's about the children, it's about the extraterrestrial presence. It's going to be overwhelming for a lot of people, even those who are starting to be awake, that are researching all of this, because a lot of people we all know are researching this information and they're starting to absorb it. However, they really haven't physically or mentally embraced the information to know that it's real or how real it is. What they're doing is they're researching and taking it in and then moving on to the next piece of information, etc. They're not really processing it and having a full grasp on what all this means and what it entails and how much of our lives have been a manipulation. They haven't gotten there yet. And I mean, we've all been there, okay? We've all been there. And we have to have some patience because we remember what that was like, what we first started to find out. He says this stuff, says, but I'm told it's intense. It's really, really intense. So that's the next piece. He says, regarding the quantum financial system, it's my understanding that all the major banks are connected to it. Most of the credit unions are supposed to be connected to it by Sunday, which was July 30th, or early Monday morning. So that means everything's going to be on it. Credit unions were apparently the last. At least that's what's been implied, is that some credit unions are already there. Others are being connected as we speak. Many banks are starting to close their branches. Wells Fargo is closing a lot of branches as well. So there's all these outlying indications that everything is moving in the direction we expected it to go. It's just that you're not seeing it on the news or on the major medias because it's their job to deceive us. And that's exactly what they continue to do. So I'm assuming that this is the same overseas. He says in Europe and maybe in other countries. In South America, those nations that are moving to BRICS, to an asset-backed currency system, they're probably going through exactly the same movements. Now, when the US launches the EBS, will other countries? He says, I don't know. It could be the wait and see how things go here. The seat of the deep state of the global cabal, or its strength, has been here in the United States, and it's taken a while to remove all their pieces off the board. And maybe one day we'll know exactly how it happened and when it happened. Okay. If they feel the need to even share that, which they should, because that's my question too. Are they ever going to come out after this movie is over and tell us the complete truth, or are they not? Are they just going to let us to believe, what's been played in the media? I hope not. But then again, if they do come out and say we had to do it this way because you wouldn't have believed it, or we had to do it this way, you're going to have people go, why'd you tell us a lie? Ooh, you're going to have those people, blah, blah. So with some people, you just can't win, right? What does Q say? 4 to 6% will be lost forever. There's no way of waking them up. It says, now, the next thing I want to talk about is that we are watching the old world, the world we all knew, the world that we read books about, the world that we learned about in school, even though it's probably all bullshit, what they've taught us. So we're watching it die. It is going away. It is collapsing to sand. And that's because, for the most part, it's all been an illusion. What's real is us, is humanity. Humanity is the reality of everything that's going on and what the world is and what it will be. It's humanity. And as we watch this world go away, we will be transitioning into another world. Some people call it a Star Wars world, or Star Trek world, sci-fi worlds. I've heard all those terms. The reality is we are 400 years behind where we should have been if the Orion group had not invaded or taken over the planet. So we have a lot of catching up to do, which I have said in the past, and we have approximately 50 years in order to make this happen, to get where we need to be, where we're supposed to be. Absolutely, and I've said this before. And we're thinking we're in the year 2023. Hell, we could be in the year 2500, 3000, 3100. We don't know, because our history has been changed many, many times and reset. We have no clue what year we're really in. He says, is it impossible? No, it's not. Humanity, we have all been beaten down, shut down, kicked around, not told who we are, not told what our birthrights are. We have all these systems here, and not only here to not only trap, but to keep us pushed down, to keep us from finding out who we truly are. To fight to make sure we don't know what our DNA birthright is. All of that is coming to the forefront soon. I can't say it's tomorrow. We have steps to take before we get there, but know that it's coming. As these systems collapse, as our faith is tested, and it's going to be, as our faith is being tested, as our will is being tested, as our belief in ourselves is being tested. This is all new territory, folks. Every single one of us is stepping into a world where we haven't been before or have memory of. Remember source? Just go back to source. It says, just connect to Creator, to Great Spirit, to the source. Remember, that is your foundation. That is all of our origin. is source, okay? Don't forget that. If you feel yourselves getting into overwhelm here in the next couple of weeks, just find a way to calm down and connect to source. Whether you're at home or in a meditation room or a yoga class, he says, you're in the mountains, your treehouse, wherever you go, wherever that safe place is for you, just remember to connect to source, to ground yourself. He says, now, ladies and gentlemen, oh, he says, okay. Now, ladies, you're magnetic. He says, gentlemen, we're electric. He says, we both need to be grounded, but we ground in different ways. It's important to know that, okay? Now we have our sun going through a helium transition. It's changing. Its chemistry is changing. And that's because the frequency of the entire solar system in this part of the galaxy is changing, okay? There's plasma everywhere, energized plasma everywhere. And there again, if you go to YouTube and go to Gina Marie Colvin Hill, she has many, many videos of the plasma in certain places. Plasma and ships, and I mean, she's got some great videos. And, you know, she might seem a little freaky and like out there, but she gets some good videos, I'll tell you. She's a sweet lady, seems. Um, he says, and it is changing and altering everything. Everything is rising in frequency. There is no stopping this. This is a progression. This is a natural progression that the universe does. This is just not something that happens in our galaxy. This happens in other places as well, and has very periodically. I'm sorry, guys. I feel with my cold, I can't talk, and my brain wants to move faster than my body. So I apologize. For us right now, he says, this is what we're going through. So we have to find a way to settle in to these changes. Okay. To understand what's going on and really, really pay attention to the frequencies going on and to do whatever we can to stay grounded. Okay. It says, now, having said that, we also need to understand we are moving into fourth density. The wall has been breached. The fourth dimensional wall or density wall has been breached. And if you followed me for years or decades, I have told you since the get-go that in lower fourth, there's some shit there. Said there's some real humdingers, he says in there, some real garbage, some real negative entities, etc. Says now, these are not physical, these are spiritual. They are disincarnate, but they're spirit. They are, in fact, spirit, but they're more on the regressive side, the dark side. And because they made a choice not to return home, the only way they could stay in a physical realm in the lower fourth density is to be like a ghost. Okay? Now, some of these are human, some of them are not. They're not us. They're another species. And the only way they can survive and have survived is to feed off the living. They feed off the living. And what's happening is now that the veil has been pierced, their space has now begun to shrink and they're losing it. Because, like us, being in third density, now that we realize that their density is shrinking and we are moving into a higher vibration and we are watching our world collapse. See, and I read this back as I'm reading this, I'm like, that's the eye of the needle. This is the compression that we're going through. Sorry, I just had the light bulb go off in my head. Okay. They are experiencing the same thing. They have been stuck in this realm for however long they've been there, and now it's beginning to shrink. because we are passing through that realm to move into fourth and higher fourth, and then to pierce the veil into fifth. They are losing their shit, he says, and they're attacking or they're panicking or they're clingy or they're zapping people of their life force. And some of them are very angry. Some of them are just incredibly fearful. All the experiences and the realms of emotions that possibly we experience. We're going to try to put something together. He says, well, I shouldn't say try. We're going to put something together that in the next webinar we can share with you on how to deal with these entities, how to protect yourself. Now, there's a lot of people who say the reptilians are still here. These are not physical beings. They are not physical in the third density. They are in lower fourth. They are astral entities, okay? So we are moving into the realm. We are moving into their frequency, into lower fourth. Now, I have been told years ago we would get some help. I don't know if we've gotten the help yet or not, he says. From things that I've been hearing from people, it would appear we haven't yet. So we'll see. He says, we'll see. Now, it is important to remember that you stay strong, in your faith, that you stay strong knowing that you are a soul, a sovereign soul, that you have the right to say no to anyone, that permission must be asked to enter your space. You declare your sovereignty. You don't surrender. You don't give up. These beings in lower fourth should have transitioned a long time ago. I don't have the answer why this band is still here. I don't understand why it hasn't been cleaned up yet. So I can't address that. But I want you to know I'm already thinking about it, okay? And I have for some time. So I don't know. But nonetheless, it's there and we're all dealing with it. I was dealing with it this morning myself, he says. So there's no giving up. We have to go through this process because part of growing and the part of evolving is learning from experience. Now, going through a situation like this, he says we get a first class education and a first right experience in learning about the spirit world that's been surrounding us all this time, because this world has been around us all this time. Most have no clue. Most don't care. Most have no clue. Most don't care. Many have absolutely, in no way, shape, or form, are interested in paying attention to it. But nonetheless, it is there. It's part of the matrix that we've been living in, that humanity's been living in for the last 8,000 years. All this darkness, all this treachery, all this betrayal was going on around us all this time, and almost no one saw it, or no one would pay attention to it or believe it. And yet it was there. It was there the whole time. This is no different. So now that we're waking up to the matrix and we're shedding the weight matrix, we're collapsing it because we no longer believe in it and we see it for what it is. He says, well, the next stage of that is this other layer of entities of this band, this lower fourth density band of dark, mostly dark energy. It says it's not 100% dark. There may be many incarnate spirits or souls in there that simply were afraid they were going to be touched by God or thrown into hell forever. So they chose not to do anything, to just stay there. So they haven't moved, but now they have to. It says now everybody's going to have to move because we're passing through. We're going to change it forever, okay? It says so. Okay, frequency. Oh yeah, and then I had a vision back on November 3rd, and I saw something that said diploma month in a month. Get your diploma in a month. So he talks about, listen to this, really, really important to remember that now I want to remind everybody this is about the kids. What we are doing now, yes, we are graduating. We are graduating. And I got that vision that said diploma in a month. We are moving into a higher consciousness and realm of physicality. And yes, we have assistance, but this is for us to do. This is our work to do. They haven't paved this road for us, okay? We have to do this work. Now, if we can band together in some way, if we can come together with our collective soul groups and give each other support as we move through this transition, I believe that it would be a lot easier because we can support each other and we can share intel and data with each other as we continue to progress to higher levels, as we pass each higher frequency. Um, we oh my God, we're not on one plateau. We let everybody know that what we've experienced, those down below. So they know what to expect so that when they hit that plateau, they're not shocked or surprised. Everybody knows, okay? The law of consistency. We pass it down, the information to everyone. And then as we pass the next plateau, then the next plateau, we continue to do the same thing. Absolutely. We share the data with everybody so everybody knows what's coming and they can prepare themselves to hit that next level, to keep everybody moving forward. In other words, we create a pathway for everybody to move through. Everything that we're doing is not only for us to gather the experience and the wisdom and the knowledge that will come from this experience, but is to preserve our race in the future. I want to say in perpetuity, and I sincerely hope that it's true. So the work that we're doing now, if we can just remember, when it gets hard, when it gets tough, that we're doing this for the future generation of our race, the Terrans. I also want you to remember that we have been endowed with genetic gifts. We have this very, very unique DNA, and once it's turned on, oh my God, he says, oh my God, how incredible and amazing our race will be. The contributions that we can make to the galaxy are extraordinary. However, at the moment, we totally lack the maturity because we've been stuck and trapped in this matrix. We don't know who we are. We don't know as a race who we are. Individually, we might have an idea about who we might be, but all of that is based on a false illusional reality that has been created to keep us in a box. When that all falls apart, who will we know ourselves to be? That's the real question here. And I've told you this years ago. They want to know who we are. They want to know who we are. Now they may have known us from the fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh density, but many of us have been here many lifetimes. And we are representative now physically of this very unique and unusual family that contains this very unusual DNA strand. We now have a physical presence in the galaxy. Future generations will have a physical presence in the galaxy. It's like, he says, you're in the first bedroom apart with 6 kids. Everybody's screaming, and it's an apartment. Okay. So you're in a 1-bedroom apartment with 6 kids, everybody's screaming, and it's very, very difficult life. And suddenly a door opens on a wall and you walk into it and you're in this paradise. That's what's happening now. We are transitioning out of the matrix, out of this 1-bedroom apartment of strife and hardship and poverty. All these belief systems that entrapped us. And we're moving into something that doesn't have any of that frequency. And you're absolutely free to create whatever it is we want to. The issue is letting go of the matrix belief systems that we have all lived under, not taking that with us into the other realm or frequency, making the transition, and that involves a level of maturity, of growing, of understanding where we were as we step into where we are now. Our lives have already changed. Some people's lives have already changed. Some don't realize it. We're not going back to 2020, and we're not going back to 2015. We're not going back to 2016. Whatever life was then, we no longer will live. We are moving into something we as a race have not experienced in 8,000 years. And we have to believe in ourselves. We have to know ourselves. We have to understand what our position is, not only in our own civilization, but how we interact with other civilizations. It's because they're not here to judge. They know what we've been up against, okay? I told you the story where I've offered to change places with Mornay, and he wanted no part of it. He says, I get it. He says, I totally get it. I totally get it now. So they're not judging. However, we have to own the experience. And the only way to own it is to be a part of it and to embrace the experience that we're going through now. And part of that experience is dealing with this lower fourth density band of shit, he says. We just have to deal with it, he says. And we cannot allow ourselves to be taken advantage of anymore. We just can't do it. In protecting each other, we will remain free. And that's what we have to do. And even if we start with a few thousand and it continues to grow and grow and grow, he says, and people around the world, soul groups, family members, tribes, once they make the decision to protect each other and defend each other, there is no stopping. He says, there is no stopping progress. This is where we're at. This is exactly where we're at. And the change of the financial system and the rounding up of what's left to deal with says shuts the door. It absolutely shuts the door on the matrix. Okay. The generating of the matrix, it shuts it down. It says all that's left is for us as a race to recognize the manipulation and to let it go. Just let it go, he says, so that we can proceed into higher consciousness and allowing ourselves to be open to learn and to experience more love, more trust, more joy, more prosperity. And I think the biggest issue in that would be trust for most of us. Because again, this is about the kids living today and the future generations that are coming. Now, I wanted to read something to you, and this can be for a father or a mother, or both, or any single parent, what I'm about to read. So he got really, really emotional on this, and I think he was crying. He says, it says, walk a little slower, Daddy, said a child so small. I'm following in your footsteps, and I don't want to fall. Sometimes your steps are very fast. Sometimes they're hard to see. So walk a little slower, Daddy, where you are leading me. Someday, when I'm all grown up, You're what I want to be. Then I will have a little child who will want to follow me. And I would want to lead just right and know that I was true. So walk a little slower, Daddy, or I must follow you. Yeah, he was crying. Says the work we do now is so important, ladies and gentlemen. It is so important. It's a massive responsibility, and I believe that's why many of us came back in time to right a terrible wrong. Okay? Because this movement right now that we're going through, this transition from 3 to 4, this is the whole enchilada right here. He says, this is the shift. This is the shift. This changes everything. And we're here. We're the ones doing it because we're the ones who can do it. We're the ones that were chosen. We're the ones that volunteered. That always moves me, he says. And he kind of screams. He says, the author, I believe, is anonymous. Says, this is the work. This is where we're at. So when the EBS comes and the hammer's dropped, our work isn't over, okay? Our work's not over. It's just getting started. It says we have to rebuild the world. We have to repair the world. We have to repair each other. We have to come to some consensus about what we've been through as a humanity, and we have to begin to communicate with each other about who we are, who we want to be, and we have to begin healing. But at the same time, we have to keep moving forward towards the future because the future is in our hands to create. That's what we have to do. He says, the Palladians aren't going to create our future. The Andromedans aren't going to create our future. The Arcturians are not. It is up to us. They will lend a hand. There will be guidance. There will be mentorship. But we're the ones that have to do the work. They're not going to hand it to us. Not going to happen. That's not how it works. Because we are our own race. We're our own race, he says. Those of us who've decided, okay, he says, I'm done being a Terran. This is me right here. I'm done. I'm done. He says, I'm going home. He says, that doesn't change the fact that you were here. Doesn't change the fact that your soul structure, soul essence, has changed and altered forever by this experience. You will always be connected to Terra, to the earth, and to this race. All of you. No one just walks away. We're always connected to this experience. Even if we go on vacation in Taurus, I couldn't understand what he said. Okay, we're still connected to the scenario. This is a big deal. This is a really big deal, and I know we're gonna be fine. It's just that, he says, I get emails from people who are really struggling, and they're stuck on the littlest thing. He says, just the littlest thing has them tripping all over themselves. And he's like, oh my God. Says, I got an email from someone saying, I want to talk to you, but I want to know what your pronouns are. And he laughed and he says, so I wrote her back and said, what the fuck? He says, that's my pronoun, God. He says, what the fuck? That's my pronoun. So we just, he says, need to stick together. Whatever happens, we have to stick together. Whether you move onto other webinars, and it doesn't matter, what I want for you is everything. What I want you to have, I want you to have everything. I want you to be prosperous. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be the best version you universally possibly can be. And all of your loved ones, that's what I want. And I want you to want that for me. Okay? That's it. He says, that's it. It's simple. says, what I wish for you, I want you to wish it for me. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Absolutely. That makes sense, doesn't it? He says, we don't need to make things more complicated. We need to keep them simple, especially when times are hard, because everybody gets simple. We need to be strong. We do. We need to be courageous. When we're down in the mouth, just connect to source. Get grounded. If you're in overwhelm, take some steps back and step away from it. If all these other people are just draining your energy that you're around, you take a step back and figure out what you're doing. Evaluate what your situation is. Are there people in your realm that are taking your energy? Because they're just feeding off your energy, okay? You don't need people like that in your life. You don't. I've gotten rid of a few. It actually feels pretty good. If it's your loved ones, have a conversation about it. Say, look, excuse me, we have to do things differently. And in that process, in that conversation, you've basically, you're teaching them at the same time that this is not okay. You need to behave differently. You need to understand that you have your own energy. You don't need to take others. You create your own. A great question that I was asked many, many years ago from Visayas when I didn't want to come back. One of the other times I didn't want to come back, he was like, Alex, where does your love come from? And of course, my first response was I put it outside of myself. He said, no, telepathically, said to me, because he was always telepathic. He said, no, your love comes through you. It begins with you. It originates with you. It always has and always will. And I have a video from a couple years ago. It says who we are. Like, we are love. We are love. That is our creator. That is God. That is love. That is us. He says, if you, if we, if I, if any of us can truly find that space where we truly understand that we generate our own love, that we are love, then it doesn't matter if anyone gives us love or shares us love or withholds love, because we have our own. We generate our own love. That is not only empowering, but it makes you sovereign. It makes you a sovereign soul, and it will not weaken you in any way. So when you approach somebody and you make the decision to be compassionate, well, you are being compassionate. That is genuine compassion because it's coming from you. It's a decision you're making from a place of strength. And if someone comes up to you and they just want to steal your energy because of your strength, you can say, no, you need to create and find your own love. Manage up all the way. Constantly managing up, managing up, managing up. It says this is where we're at. And we can get lost in all the news. You know, we can get lost in all the intel. It's so easy to do. We can get lost in all the goings on. Who's getting arrested? Who's this? Who's that? Who's a crook? Who isn't? Very easy to get distracted in all of that. But again, it always comes down to we the people. We the people. And we the people are made up of individual sovereign souls who are connected to source. The Sayus once said, the worship of the isness is the creation of self. Isness is their way of expressing source, that which created all the dimensions and the space, what we call our universe. The worship of the isness is creation itself. Sometimes their wisdom, he says, is very, very simple and direct. He says, and you're just like, wow, like, why do you have to pay to live on a planet you were born on? Who would have ever thought that? No one down here. And he laughs. He says, no one down here would have ever thought of that question. So I know there's a lot of questions, and I will endeavor to do my best with those, but I wanted to take us to the outskirts of our atmosphere so we could get a good perspective of where we are at as soul groups. And I've done my best today to try to share that with you. Says we'll be talking some more about it, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that I was complete about, but I'm going through the same process with you guys. He says, I am, and I know how hard it is and how much work it is. I do. So I don't know if the hardest part is behind us, um, or if it's literally right in front of us. He says, I do not know, but whatever it is, let's just stick together, okay? As a race, let's try to stick together. Not try, let's just stick together and get through all this and communicate and share with each other and those who are asleep. There is a percentage who are never going to wake up. They're just not. So all we can do is love them from a distance, and that's what I suggest. We don't tear them down, we don't trash them, we just love them from a distance. And as we move further away and we continue to evolve, maybe some of them will wake up. But if they don't, they're sovereign souls. They're all part of Source as well. And as the A's have said long ago and continue to say, all the broken pieces will find their way home. I love that. I love that saying. That's one of my favorites. So we will see these folks again sometime, somewhere, in some other realm, okay? So they deserve the same respect we give each other and ourselves for being on this journey. Absolutely. Earth has been a very, very tough school. It has been. There's no doubt of that. It says, okay, let's do some questions. And again, if you're watching me for the first time, I do not write down every single question because some he's already answered in the webinar and some questions he's answered before, and I kind of just do the new ones, or ones that I feel like information people need to know. First question. Hi, Alex. As the lower fourth density negativity polarized frequencies surface and manifest, do you and or the A's have any specific advice on the best way to navigate through this new territory? Thanks for everything you do. And Alex says, I shared earlier that they said we would get some assistance. At the moment, I'm not sure that assistance has arrived or if it's coming or maybe it's already has. It says, I do not know, but what's clear is that they want us to know about this realm. It's obviously important for our evolution and our knowledge base to understand that we have been living with this realm very, very close to us. Now about exorcism, we hear about exorcisms, we hear about demonic possession. It says of multiple personalities, where a lot of people are coming to the conclusion is the result of different attachments to the physical body of dead souls that are feeding off of a host, which would be a living third density person. Many people have not paid attention to that, and they go to horror movies and they just don't think, they just think it's make believe. Well, in truth, some of that's true, and it does, and it has happened and is currently happening. So obviously, it's necessary for us to understand this realm. So I don't think that if it were me, I would want everybody to see it. I would want them to know just how real it is. Now, to which degree or level of experience would I have everyone go to? that I would have to have everybody go through living through an experience of an attachment. However, I do think it's necessary for people to know and see it. Because when you pay attention, you open your scope of reality and it shifts your consciousness into a holographic perspective. We live in here, this third density. People think ghosts just don't exist and that this realm of fourth doesn't exist and doesn't have all these entities in it. When you realize the reality of it, it shifts your perspective into not just third, but also into fourth density. So, it opens up your mind and your consciousness and your perspective to holographic viewership. And then once you grasp that, you will grasp more of fourth density because now you know it's real and it's there and it actually exists. So your mind is more open now in your consciousness. Your soul is more open to seeing what else is there. And once you get past lower fourth, I understand some of the lower fourth is just gorgeous, magnificent. And then when you get there, you're consciously aware of, wow, what does the fifth look like? Now you're stretching yourself out to look into fifth density. I think it's all a progression. I think it's all a natural curiosity that we lost, that we need to regain. Are we always going to be happy with what we see? Obviously not, but it's a lesson, it's an education, it's experience, and lessons learned are bridges burned. You only have to cross those bridges but once. If you learn the lesson, so the next time somebody comes up to us with a contract or invites us to a party and says, hey, we've got this other third density mission. Says, it's short. You just go for a weekend. It's just a weekend. None of us are gonna go for that. It's just absolutely not. I wouldn't. I ain't gonna fall for that shit again. I'm done. I need vacation. Says none of us are gonna fall for that again. Because we've had the experience. But I think it's all a progression to move us into holographic thinking, and that perfectly makes sense to me. Okay. Next question. Dear Alex, what are your feelings about the major upcoming events by end of 2023? Thank you for all your dedication. Much love and gratitude. Alex says, well, I've got my seatbelt on and I'm strapped in. Says, whatever it is, I'm hoping to ride through it. He says, ride through it. Help my clan get through it and survive. Give them a heads up on what I think is coming so they can prepare. So they're not in shock and then they fall back into fear. Then we got to deal with that. But if people know it's coming, they can prepare for it. And even if they go into shock, it'll be short-lived because they realize, okay, we were told to expect this. And now we can move forward. And I think the sooner we get over the shock stuff, the shock and awe, the sooner we will move through all this and get into fourth. And I think that's the mission here, is to try to get into fourth. And this is why I said earlier today, as we move through this, we share the data with everybody on our downline so that everybody understands what's coming and we can prepare for it. And we all move through it a lot quicker and get this behind us. And I think the more people that wake up, the faster the process will be and the quicker we will move through all these transitions that we have to go through. But communication is a massive part of this, and sharing what we know and what we've experienced with others, whether they're willing to listen to it or not. Says, I know when I talk to my kids, and I'm sure if you're parents, you have to repeat things over and over and over again because they're there and they're looking at you, but they're not really paying attention. So sometimes you have to do this with them. One finger in your ear. um, and tell them to do this. So it goes in one ear, and we have to do that with them again with some stuff so that when these things happen, if they're not living at home with you, they're like, wow, mom told me about this, or dad told me about this. And then they call you by phone and contact you telepathy or contact you telepathically and say, yo, yo, you were right. What do we do? So now they're paying attention, and that's the best you can hope for, is that they start paying attention. Because if they're paying attention, now they're involved in the progressive movement of consciousness, and that's where we all have to be as a race, is connected to the progressiveness of our consciousness moving forward. And by doing this, future generations will automatically get this, because we shift our own DNA by doing this. So our offspring also gets it. Their offspring will also get it. Okay. That's just how I see it. Next question. Dear Alex, I wonder if you could speak a bit about the honoring of the moon and its cycles. As a yoga teacher, I have seen a lot of people over the years doing full moon rituals, etc., and speaking about the common ways in which the energies of the moon and the cycles carry knowing what we know, what the cycles carry, and knowing what we know now about the moon. Can you speak about this a bit? Thank you and love. And Alex says, thank you. Ever since I was 8 years old, I knew the moon was a base, which is why I haven't paid any attention to astrology. I was aware that the gravitational field had an effect not only on the planet and the waves, but also on a woman's menstrual cycle. I was aware of that. Courtesy of Mornay in women's circles, he said, I heard that talked about as well, but I'm not one to ask that question to because I've not paid attention to it. He says, every time I looked at the moon, I was waiting to see spaceships come off of it. It was not something I was interested in worshiping. I was grateful at times it was up there when I would go hiking in the woods and on a full moon and I was able to find my way out or find the trail, but it was never something that I looked at in adoration. So I can't answer that question in the way that I think you'd want me to. I never took part in any of those rituals and things of that nature because I knew what it was. I knew where it had come from, even though I wasn't able to talk about it to anybody. I knew, and like when the astronauts first went there, and the U.S. military did go to the moon, I had already knew we'd have been there for some time. He says, again, I was never able to talk about that stuff, so I'm gonna have to pass on that question. And he laughs. I'm not sure we went in a spaceship. I think there was a jump room somewhere. I think we might have gone, and we were told not to come back. But I don't think we went in a tin can, that's for sure. Too many questions about that. I think we went, I just don't think we went the way we were told. So, Alex, what do the A's think of homosexual relationships? Do they have them? Do they have insight on the transgender agenda, etc.? Alex says, I have not gone there with them. They do have 3 sexes, male, female, and androgynous. I do not know the relationship. I've never been exposed to any of that, nor did I ever want to approach them about these things. Because he says, you have to understand that for many, many years, when I was with them, there was a part of me that was embarrassed. And it wasn't that I was embarrassed about me being there, but I was embarrassed in how we as a planet were behaving. They simply didn't understand why we kept killing each other. They understood the manipulation, but at the same time, they simply could not understand why we just didn't say no, and how some people actually took delight in killing others. They didn't understand why men and women would sign up to go to war knowing that they either were going to die or they were going to have to kill other people. If no one signed up, no one would become soldiers. There would be no wars. That was their attitude. And I found myself in a position not to defend a lot of our behaviors, which we consider normal. I didn't set myself up for that. But opening up cans of worms about homosexuality or, well, the transgender movement is relatively new, but it's not something I even want to go there with them because it's just something. He says, I want to be proud of us, and where I could defend humanity, I did. In places where I could not, I kept my mouth shut and I didn't go any further. Excuse me. The fact that I shared with you about their position on war and soldiers, and this is the first time I've ever said that out loud. And if you go back to all my talks, I haven't gone there because I was embarrassed because I couldn't defend it because their logic is absolutely sound. You know, he says absolutely sound. If no one became a soldier, there wouldn't be any wars. And now, what we know about how all these things were full of manipulation to destroy other countries and to depopulate the planet, take ourselves out, they were right, and we've been idiots. He says we've been idiots. So we didn't see it. We just didn't see it. So there are moments, and he says, I wish I could do over with them, knowing what I know now. But on another level, they do understand, they do know. But I was there. I was standing right in front of them, and I was the focus of their questions. And they're wondering, and maybe they could have picked somebody smarter, he says, to do this. He says, I was one of four. He says, the others bailed. I was the only one who said yes. So I didn't always know what to say. I didn't always have an argument or a way to push back. And the more the logic sunk in, the less and less I wanted to come back here. He says, let's move on. Alex, will Hollow Earth be our first contact on the surface? And Alex says, our first contact on the surface has already occurred. The military, solar warden, 8,000 years ago, the Chaldeans, the Sumerians, the Babylonians. As far as our race, we've already had first contact. They lived amongst us for thousands and thousands of years. It's where we learned farming, agriculture, husbandry, where we learned machinery, how to mine, how to make minerals. We learned this all from them. It's more of a reintroduction than a first contact. That's already happened. The remnants of their civilizations. He says, just research the Tartarians. And that was another civilization that was here, that was off world. He says that was living amongst us. The book of Enoch, just read the book of Enoch. That was experiences we were having with extraterrestrials. So we've already had first contact. People in the past, the Native Americans that knew the ant people, they had their first contact. They met Palladians and Syrians. And it's not written, but it's oral tradition that they've shared all this. And as far as Inner Earth, Admiral Byrd talked about this, but they've been to the surface before. They knew what was going on. There are films of ships flying all over the North Pole and then going in. I've seen them, he said. So they know there's been contact. The problem with this is that they did everything they could to erase this history from us. And you hear this all the time. First contact, first contact. I mean, we have their DNA. It says we have their DNA. So how could this be first contact? I'm just putting it in perspective. Do I think it will be the hollow earth beings? I don't know. If I were a betting man, I would say our first would be the Palladians because they're the most like us. Is that the most like us? That would be my bet, he says. But you know, the strategy is being rewritten and rewritten and rewritten based on events that are occurring. So who knows at this point, he said, who knows? Next question. Hi, Alex. In all the time you have had to observe or interact with the A's, have you noticed changes in their culture? Are they themselves going through an ascension process in their reality? And I said this a long time ago in my videos, a couple of years ago. It's not just us going through changes and ascension, it's everyone in this galaxy, in this universe, okay? All of us. He says, hey, that's a great question. I was told that they were going through the process, that their people were going through the process, and I shared that years ago. But the interaction with M and his crew, I have seen changes within themselves. He says, with their attitudes, with their approach and interactions with me. For most of the time, his crew never directly interacted with me. There were nods and there were a greeting, he says, but briefly there's been more interaction and there's been a sharing of each other's perspective, which hadn't been there for the whole time prior to that. I've seen them lighten up a lot, and I think a lot of that has to do with not only the shifts they're going through, but they have watched us rise from the ashes. They have watched us not only struggle, but they're watching us take a stand. They're watching us taking back our power, um, watching us waking up and start to defend each other and protect each other. They're watching us begin to dream our own dream, to dream our own dream of what our society and civilization can be, to dream of sovereignty, to dream of taking back our power. They are seeing all these changes in us, and I think what that's doing because they've had this themselves, regardless of where they're going. They have, he says, I want to say they have a new respect for us, for watching us go through these steps and walking the right path, for a civilization to survive, to come into its own, a civilization that they can not only interact with, but to learn to respect. And at some point, when the mentorship begins, they realize that it would not be a waste of time. And I hate to say it that way, but I think for a long time they wondered what we were going to do. He says it's one thing to know what the future is, but it's another to be here and watch us make those decisions in real time and move forward, to want to have our own dreams and to shake off the Orion Empire, the AI system that we've all been controlled and manipulated with. He says, I have shared this in the past with you guys that they have shown me the ruins of other civilizations, and their response was these were flourishing civilizations that are no longer here because they lost their original intent. Well, he says, we're just getting our original intent back. We didn't lose it, we're just now remembering it. And I think that excites them. I think on levels, they're actually excited for us. And I think there's more engagement because they see us making the turn. If you know what I mean, and I think the same is true for all other contactees. Things are speeding up. There's more and more information. There's more information in the news regarding disclosure. He says, we've made the turn. We've made the turn, and they want to engage because we've made the turn. It's all good. He says, it's all good. And I know we're gonna be okay now. I do. In the late 90s, it says early 2000s, it says, I didn't know, but I wasn't gonna give up. I just didn't know if we were gonna make it. Things were really fucked up then. Wow. He says, and I was hammered pretty good, but fortunately we stuck to the mission. We just kept moving forward, baby steps, and eventually you get there. And now we've made the turn. Now there's more engagement. There's more information being released. There's information regarding the inner earth folks. He says, wanting to come to the surface. That is huge. That they would even be talking about this. He says they're not going to come up here and start taking over. That's just not going to happen. But the fact that there's even that conversation means that we, as a civilization, have made the turn. We should all be proud of ourselves. We really should be proud of ourselves that we have been able to get it to this point. The work isn't done. The work's not done. We got to this point. So, boo-rah, he says, everybody, boo-rah. Next question. Hello, Alex. Did the A's and the Palladians leave Lyra at the same approximate time? And Alex says, they were all Lyrans then, okay? They were all Lyrans. They became Palladians and Andromedans when they went to those respective star systems in order to survive. But when they left Lyra, they were all Lyrans, okay? So I think pretty much all of us came from Lyra. That's an important fact to remember. They were escaping in order to make sure their civilization or parts of it could survive because they were getting hammered, and being an Agarian race, he says they weren't warlike, and that's all the Draconians were. They were warlike, so they were having their way. When they settled in different star systems, they established, he says, when they began to, oh, sorry, let me back up. Oh my gosh. When they settled in different solar systems, he says that's when they began to reestablish their civilizations and build cities, etc., etc. That's when they began to recognize themselves as part of the Palladian system here, Arcturian system, the Antari system, Hercules, Sirius, etc. Okay, but when they left, they were all Lyrans. They were just Lyrans. So technically, yes, they would have left all at the same time. All the Lyrans. They went in shifts, but essentially they were all leaving within close proximity of each other, all heading in different directions, okay? They didn't all go to the same place because then the Draconians would have just found them. They would have just followed them to one place and just finished it. But scattering them around, going in different directions and scattering, he says the Draconians didn't have those resources. It gave different groups the opportunity to survive and rebuild. The process of rebuilding their civilizations and to prepare in a way to defend themselves. And along the way, they met other star nations that were already out there that they maybe didn't know anything about. So the history of the galaxy is phenomenal. He says it's Star Wars on steroids. The true story is on true story is on One Day We'll Know. The true story is on steroids, I guess. He says, one day we'll know, okay? One day we'll know. Next question. Alex, are human collective consciousness quantum? Would you comment on this, please? Gratitude for everything you do for humanity. And Alex says, yes, they are. All consciousness is quantum. And he kind of laughs and he says, it's all quantum. We live in a universe of at least 12 dimensions. Some are saying 13. Whatever that number is, and we are all connected to each other. Some of you are here from the 11th. Some of you are here from the 9th. There is a part of you that is still connected to those realms. It's quantum. It's all consciousness. Everything is consciousness. It's all light. It's all energy. It's all frequency. It's all color. We are all connected to all of it. Third is connected to fourth. Fourth is connected to fifth. Fifth is connected to sixth. If they were broken apart, in order for us to go from sixth to third, we'd have to build bridges, and there are no bridges. We are all connected to each other. It's all about resonant frequency coming down and going back up. It's all quantum. So, yes, we're being reintroduced to the universe. We have been in this bubble, we have been in this cocoon because of the matrix, because of the Orion AI, etc., etc., etc. He says. We're now being reintroduced to the universe, and this quantum system will be the first. He says it's going to change everything. It's going to open up our thinking into a whole new perspective, and from there, we take off on our own. It's a good thing. He says it's a good thing. This is not deep state. This is not New World Order. Okay. He says, I know some people are going there. You have got to, at some point, let go of your own fears. Okay. Because you can't stay in this system because it's just going to grind you into the ground. That's what it's designed to do. We have to let this go. You're an eternal being. Your essence can never be destroyed. Give fear a break. Take a rest. Take a leap of faith. Okay? And he kind of laughs. A couple more questions. Hi, Alex. There are people trying to shoot holes in the existence of space arcs. The argument is that there is no need for spaceships or arcs because travel is done through stargates. Can you please explain? And he says, you are presuming that our physical bodies in the condition that they're in could survive going through a stargate without being in a starship in an enclosed space, and that would not be correct. Our physical bodies in the current condition would never survive. It would never survive. And you go through a stargate, where are you going? What kind of environment are we going to? What kind of a planetary system? What kind of a star do they have? Does that star have the same frequency as ours? Does the chemical composition of the planets that we're visiting, would they be exactly the same as ours? More than likely not, because we live in a very rare ecosystem. My understanding is there's only 8, like Earth, in the entire galaxy. There's a lot of things to consider in that. If you go through a starship or an arc, you can always go somewhere. You can look, you can observe, you can send people to the ground without killing everybody, and you could observe and say, can we do this? Can we make changes? That's if we were looking to migrate or to colonize somewhere else. We cannot do that without a spaceship or an ark. Solar Warden, that should be your answer. If we just needed stargates, we wouldn't need the starships that we've already built. But we do need them, okay? We have a lot to learn about space travel, and even though we've been out there 50, 60, 70 years, we don't know everything. There are a lot of magnetic fields, frequency fields that when stars combine, energy and frequency, that would just pulverize us. It says if we didn't know what we were doing, when you're in an enclosed space, like a starship, it protects you from those things. So if we were maybe, well, he says, I just don't know. He says the A's are fifth density and they use spacecrafts. So I don't understand going and using a Stargate without a physical craft. He says, so I guess that question's over my head. If you know something that I don't. See, and I think they used Stargates a lot back in the day, but that was when we were higher frequency too. But yeah, of course, we still have to travel in ships, but I think the higher density you go, you're able to just manifest where you want to go. And then your physicality, if you have a physical body, maybe just being light in those higher densities, you can just go to wherever you want. So yeah, I think probably in the lower densities you would need a ship, right? So he says, can I read this poem? This time it's gonna do it for the moms. Says, so walk a little slower, Mom, said the child so small. I'm following your footsteps and I don't want to fall. Sometimes your steps are very fast, sometimes they're hard to see. So walk a little slower, Mom, for you are leading me. Someday, when I'm all grown up, you're what I want to be. Then I will have a little child who will want to follow me. And I would want to lead just right and know that I was true. So walk a little slower, Mom, for I must follow you. He says, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. God bless. So that's the reason I kind of go back and I do these and I don't do up-to-date ones. Yes, the current stats and some of this is outdated, but there's a lot of information that he talks about that I've never heard him talk about, and it's a lot of stuff that's reassuring as well. So that's why I like to present it to you, my family. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Give it a thumbs up, share it with someone else if they can't afford Alex's webinars. I appreciate you following me. Thank you to all the new subscribers. I love my small little family on YouTube and BitChute, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you for the donations. I get one once in a while, every now and then, coming through, so thank you for that. Please support Alex and go to his website at alexcollier.org or go to his Bright Eon page at Bright Eon, which is BRIGHTEON.com. And he has Alex Collier Official 2 for his websites on there. So support Alex, JP, and James for that. And thank you again for watching. I'm going to try to do another, I want to do another chit chat with Kat. I did one probably a year ago. I don't know. There's a few things I want to discuss on my own with my members. So hopefully I'll get to do that hopefully tomorrow night when I have some time after work. But thank you so much for listening and watching. Continue to be that light shining in the darkness. The light's coming. It's coming. I can feel it. So hopefully you can feel it too. And I know we're going through really tough times right now. It's really hard. It's hard to pay for food. It's hard to pay your mortgage. It's hard to pay any bills right now. You know, we're still in this matrix and we're in this parallel universe where like we're still in the old system, but yet there's this other system that's running by the side, and it's just some days is so frustrating because we just don't want to be in this old one anymore. So I'm here with you. I'm right here with you. So I give you hugs to all of you. Hang in there. I love you. Thank you so much. And so say we all from Battlestar Galactica. So I love all of you. We will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.